Well. Hello, West Ham fans. I'm still on my holidays, but I'm going to give to you my top tips for who's going to step up from the academy next year. Yes, everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. So, obviously, the season's now over, and we're looking ahead to the 24-25 season. We're looking ahead to a new coach regime as well, new backroom staff as well, and by all accounts, one of the key criteria, is that the right word? I don't know. In terms of next year, is to implement, where appropriate, academy players. And obviously that was one of the issues under the Moyes era, despite the fact Moyes gave, I think, 21 or 22 first team players, for academy players, their first team debuts. There wasn't enough progression into being a regular into the squad. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there is great, but actually it's developing them. And actually, and Anton did a show, I think it was last week, about how certain stars could save us millions. And we'll talk about some of those stars as well. Obviously, I spend a lot of time watching the academy and live firsthand and hear what people say and hear what coaches say in terms of the players that are currently available to us. A number have been out on loan. I think a number could still go out on loan in the summer to various clubs in the various leagues in the English league, as well as maybe even utilising our connections in Austria with Austria Klagenfurt, whatever they're called, as we will be welcoming Andy Irvine apparently to Rush Green with pre-season training in a couple of months' time. So what I'm going to do is go through sort of the areas like the goalkeeper, defenders, midfield, attackers, and give you my views about who potentially could step up. So, names that may be well familiar to you for those of you who watch the Academy show we do every Monday. Obviously, we won't do that all the time now because obviously there's no games, but we'll keep you abreast of any information about the Academy, particularly with the retained lists. They'll be coming out very, very soon as well, in terms of who they're retaining, who they're getting rid of, because there always will be every season. There's that sort of slight strange time where half a dozen players will leave, not get new contracts, half will get new deals, that type of thing. And obviously that is in coordination not only with Kenny Brown and the Academy, but also in terms of the first team as well, in terms of those who could make the step up into the first team. And there are a number who could do that. And obviously, by doing that, they will then qualify for being academy players. So that goes to our quota, and also homegrown as well. Double whammy, particularly with potentially the likes of Ben Johnson leaving. I mean, that's a blow for our academy and our homegrown quota. So let's start with the goalkeepers, shall we? So the goalkeepers, we're in a good vein of form with the goalkeepers, I think, in terms of, we spoke last week about Jason Nang potentially leaving the club, Nathan Trott potentially leaving the club as well, and obviously Fabianski keeps another 1 year deal to his current tenure at the club, and obviously Alphonse Areola being the club number one. So obviously, in terms of those immediately beneath them, Christian Heggie and Jacob Knightbridge. And I've talked about these guys quite a lot. Heggie's been on loan to Den Bosch, played a lot of games. Before that, he was at Stevenage earlier this season just gone, and had rave reviews from Stevenage fans as well. Both very good goalkeepers. Jacob Knightbridge, as I said, I think he's got all the attributes to be a England number one goalkeeper, an England goalkeeper in the next few years' time. He is very, very good. Not only is he good in terms of shot stoppers, he's quick off his line, he is incredibly composed when it comes to distribution with his feet, both feet. In fact, I think he is left-footed, but I don't know. Because he's quite, and nowadays you look at the top teams in the Premier League, for example, the top goalkeepers, the likes of Edison, Allison, these guys are just as good on the ball as the midfielders, the defenders, and Jacob is that. I mean, I watched them train, warm up for the playoff game against Blackburn, and I don't think they actually did any shot stopping until about 45 minutes in to the hour-long warm-up, or the 50-minute. It was all distribution. It was all passing, left foot, right foot, reserve keepers, giving them slightly dodgy balls, high balls, controls. And that's the way the modern day is in terms of that goalkeeper, that sweeper keeper. And particularly Jacob, I really think there's a fantastic future. Beneath him, there's even more. You've got Finley Herrick, Mason Terry. Mason Terry went to Concord Rovers this year on loan and got Player of the Year. So we're in a good. We've got a good bunch of young keepers, but I think these two particularly, if Joseph goes, if Nathan goes, which we're led to believe, one of these will step up and be the third choice goalkeeper. And I imagine one will probably go out on loan. Whether it's Christian goes out on loan again, and Jacob is that sort of under 21 goalkeeper / 13 goalkeeper, or third place goalkeeper in the squad. Obviously, J-Lo doesn't tend to put two goalkeepers on the bench as well, so that's nice as well. We'll have another space on the bench for maybe another outfield academy player. But I would imagine you'll hear quite a bit from these two in terms of the squad being in particularly for the cup games. Fabianski obviously there's less games not being in Europe. Fabianski will be playing as a cup goalkeeper, you'd imagine. So maybe someone like Jacob, someone like Heggie would be there as the number 3 and called upon as and when required. Although I don't think they'd be, hopefully, touch wood, required too much next season for the first team. Let's move into the defence, shall we? Now, there's 4 players I've cherry picked, and then I've got a wild card, which I'm going to talk about as well. So the 4 I've picked, Caelan Casey's made his debut, his Premier League debut in the last game against Luton at home. He came for the last few minutes. Caelan's been at the club since under 6s. He's been captain of the under 18s and various age groups. Very much a West Ham man, West Ham boy. Good player. I don't personally. I think he'll get game time. I don't think he'll break that sort of Premier League starting 2 if Lopetegui plays a back 4, for example. But I think you could well see him make some cup appearances this season. Depends obviously how far we go in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. Depends who we get drawn against potentially. But I definitely think you'll see Caelan play more. He's not gifted with pace. He's a big lad, got a big stride. But I think he's a West Ham boy, and he's someone we'll be proud to see play because he comes from a West Ham family. Next up, Dan Chesters. Now, Dan's been on loan at Salford City for the last few months. He went in January, played a number of positions on the right-hand side. Basically, Steve Potts converted him from a right. You may remember him when we played the Australia tour. He played right wing. I think he set one up. I've got a feeling he set up Mbama, I think, in the Perth Glory game. But regardless of that, he comes in. He's had a decent time at Salford City. Played a number of different positions on that right-hand side. Potsy's converted him from a right wing to a right wing back, which I think is his position. And he's played for Salford. I think he played right wing. He's played right back, right wing back. He's played all across down that right-hand side. Very, very good up and down. Very, very obviously attack-minded defender when he plays as a defender. Very similar to Emerson. And I think potentially he could come in. The right back is, I think, a position we may well look to bring in someone. Thiago Santos from Lille is someone being linked with. Carl Walker-Peters, another one, particularly if Flynn Downs, for example, moves to Southampton. Maybe that could be used in the deal. I think that'd be very, very useful. But someone like Dan, I could see, particularly in the cup competitions, getting some game time. Very good player. Next up, Ollie Scarles. Now, we know Ollie. Ollie's made his first team debut last season. Is it FSSB he played in? I can't remember. But he's someone that people have known about. He's been injured quite a bit this season. Has had a bit of a season plagued by injuries. But he's a very, very good player. Left back. Yeah, he made his debut against FCSB back in 2022. So he was just a pup, really, in all honesty. And he signed his scholarship deal in June 2022. He hasn't had the greatest season because injuries have curtailed him, but he's got a wand of a left foot, a wand of a. And if you're looking for a backup option to Emerson, Ollie Scars is it. Ollie Scars really is it, and I hope that's how he's utilised next season. We may well be looking to bring another left back in. We'd be linked with Bradley Locko, for example, from Brest, amongst others. But I really think that someone like Ollie could step up. Still quite young. But on that left-hand side, that sort of left back, you don't have to be particularly built, particularly strong. It's about up and down, about his ball distribution, and he's got it in spades. And in terms of my top four, so to speak, Julie Robinson. Now, Julie Robinson is someone I've been waxing lyrically since we started doing the academy shows. He, to me, is a real gem, and he's one that's going to go under the radar and make a big impact when he does turn up for West Ham first team. He's a right wing back type position. He's very forward progressive, very good in the ball. Very similar to Emerson in that sometimes you'll blink and he's playing his number 10 role because he just keeps going, and just stays there for a little bit. He is very quick. Reminds me of the way someone like Carl Walker plays. You know, very strong, very dynamic, sort of the modern day defender. And I think I can really see him breaking into that first team squad this year. If, again, this is all independent on the level. If not, I think he would be an absolute ideal candidate to go out on loan to a football, a progressive football side, not a defensive side, someone who plays on the front foot, who plays very attacking, who brings their fullbacks up. Someone, Southampton, something like that, they didn't go up or something. That's the type of side I can see him play, but a very ball-playing, possession-based side on loan. I think he'll be absolutely brilliant. He's recently signed a new 2.5-year deal, I think it was. So we should have him for a few more seasons at least. My wild card is Michael Forbes. Michael Forbes, centre-half, captain of the under-21s, Northern Ireland full international as well. He has got a fantastic accent when he's shouting at people at the pitch. That's meant to be a Northern Irish accent. Get the fucking ball. Brilliant. And then you've got Callum Marshall and Patrick Kelly, and he's brilliant. He's very intimidating. Just fucking get on the ball. Come on. It's brilliant. He has a bit of a old school feel about him as a player. A bit Craig Dawson-esque. Do you know what I mean? That sort of, not Lionheart, but, I want to say Braveheart, but Scottish. But, he's a fighter. He's not a lover, he's a fighter. But he's very comfortable in the ball. So unlike Dawson, where Dawson was a blocker, he was a proper defender, but he wouldn't do a sweep in 30. Actually, he did a couple of times, but not consistently. Michael's a bit different. Michael can play a bit. He can bring the ball forward a bit. If anything, I think he's got more of a chance of having a longer career at West Ham than Caelan, to be honest, just because I think he's got a bit more about him. It reminds me, very reminiscent, and there's no comparison, because I think there's a player in the 18s called Josh Briggs who reminds me a bit more of Deck. But when I saw Deck play when he was 18, 21, when he was 18s and in the under-21s at the time, he stood out a mile, not because he was beating four men and dinking into the top corner, but just his presence. He just has that sort of captain's presence. I say it quietly, but that sort of John Terry aura about him, even at that young age. And that is something you can't teach. Michael's very similar. He's an imposing character. It might be the voice as well, I don't know. But he just has this sort of real oomph about him. And when he doesn't play, you really notice it. Let's move into midfield. Midfield's a really interesting position. 3 players, and I'm sure you're all well aware of these players, but we'll go through them in a bit of detail. See, I think George is going to make the step up this year, play a lot more within the first team, and do that sort of seesaw between the first team in the 21s, because I think he's still, it's important to get that first team minutes under his belt, but also to continue his tutelage, continue developing, continue getting those reps in his legs by playing in the 21s. He's an incredibly clever player. He's a player I'd like to get a bit more bulk on him. Not like not like Mikel Antonio, but someone like Jack Grealish or someone like, those types of players. They're not built. David Silva wasn't built, but he was strong. He was like an ox, really. He was very hard to push off, although being quite diminutive. Gianfranco Zola, for example, not big lad at all, not a bulk, but he was very hard to get off the ball, and you need that when you're stepping up into the Premier League. We know he's got fantastic movement. Technically, he's head and shoulders above someone like a Thomas Souček. He's a fantastically gifted footballer, and one who we should be putting our hopes against going into the next few years at least. West Ham boy, we talk about the academy. He is the epitome of the academy. He joined at under 6 with Caelan Casey, and they've gone all the way up. And obviously, they were both on the pitch together for the first team against Bournemouth in the Premier League, which is the pinnacle, and they've done it. So I really hope we see a lot more of George. He's an exciting player. He's the type of player that West Ham fans love to see because he's one of their own. He's good on the ball. He's dynamic. He's nippy. He's got good movement. He's always looking for the ball, always showing for the ball. And that's exactly how he works in the 21s. Always dropping deep, always trying to find those little pockets to pick the ball up and make something happen. And what I love about him is, first he does is he goes forward. His first instinct is to move forward with the ball rather than pass back. And that's exactly what you need, particularly at West Ham, in terms of where traditionally we sort of do sort of quite laboured ball control in the first team, back and forth. First thing he wants to do is go forward and advance, and that's brilliant. Freddie Potts is someone who's definitely, again, these guys could go out on loan, but in terms of if they stay within the system next year, Freddie's going to get game time. Freddie will get game time. Came from a fantastic season on loan at Wycombe Wanderers, Player of the Year, Player of the Year as well, and he left the boy and returned a man. He was training with the first team towards the back end of this season when his loan spell with Wycombe finished. He couldn't play because he was technically still a Wycombe player, but he was training. He wasn't training with the under-21s. He was training with the first team. A young Declan Rice, many people say, the way he plays, and he is going to hopefully save us a shitload of money in the next few years in terms of needing a CDM, but also needing a CDM who's homegrown and is also an academy player as well. And lastly, Lewis Orford. Now, Lewis is, for me, one of the top players in his age group in the country. He is, and I've said it before, the next Michael Carrick. When you used to watch Michael play, when I used to watch him play in the kids, when they won the Cup in 1999, and obviously at West Ham, and then he goes on to Spurs and Man United and England, and obviously didn't get enough England caps, I think, in terms of what his talents brought, or should have brought. Lewis is exactly the same. I used to watch Michael Carrick, and Michael Carrick never used to misplace a pass, whether they were simple, long distance. He had amazing anticipation in terms of where to pass the ball, a great range of passing, and never looked rushed. Lewis might be hounded by 2 or 3 players in an under-21 game. And obviously it can be a little bit frantic, the youth team games. But Lewis looks like he's got so much time on the ball. It's incredible. Such a classy player. And even at a younger age, when he was 18, he was already earmarked for being one who can step up. I think Lewis might go out on loan next year and do a Freddie Potts next year, and I don't think that's a detriment to Lewis's talents. I think it shows how much they value his talents, rather than necessarily keep him in the under-21s, where is he going to develop any further? I don't think so. I think for him, he needs first team football to develop, Again, technically, head and shoulders above someone like Souček, but he's not. Particularly in the role he plays in midfield, you need to be able. I mean, JWP again, he's not the strongest ox in the world, but he can hold his own to some respect, and that's what I think Lewis needs. Lewis needs a season, probably being knocked about a bit in League One. Maybe go to Wickham again. They seem to be a good side and value sort of our midfielders, and then come back a man for the 25-26 season potentially. But he's earmarked. I mean, I was reading an article, the top 50 players under 18s or something like, and Lewis was like one or two at the top. So he has a huge future ahead of him. There's some others in the thing, but I think for me, I'm looking at some of them, the likes of Kean Forson. I just can't see him stepping up. PK, Patrick Kelly, great player. I think another season next year in the under-21s will benefit him. I think that's from the midfields. That's why I think we could potentially see make impacts into the first team. And lastly, I'm talking about the forwards. Really, the forwards for me, there's really only one, and that's Callum Marshall in terms of making some impact into the first team. Obviously, we had an ill-fated loan spell to West Brom last year for the second half of the season. Possibly seen as a bit of a vanity project. By all accounts, over 20 clubs were interested in taking him on loan. One of the hardest pushing for his signature was Leighton Orient, who I think would have been better for him and his development. He wouldn't have had to move. He's quite a home bird, and West Ham have a bit of a clique of Northern Ireland players: PK, Shawnee. You've got Michael Forbes, and also Callum in the 21s. And I just think, I mean, if you saw him when we played Blackburn in the playoffs, he scored two. First one was a bit sloppy, but second one was back, outside the box, rifle shot. He scores goals. He'll score goals in whatever division he plays in, if he plays. He reminds me of Craig Bellamy. He is such a fucking annoyance for a defender. He doesn't stop yapping. He doesn't stop moaning. He doesn't stop talking to the ref. He doesn't stop, hounding the centre halves, chasing down the goalkeeper, willing the players to come and join him in the chase. And I'm not talking the one with the Beast and the Cinnamon. I'm talking about the chat. It says a closing down the ball, and I really think he can have a good showing in pre-season, and obviously made his debut against Bristol City for the last 20 minutes or so in the FA Cup, and I would like to assume that we'll see him have some minutes, particularly in the cup competitions this year as well. Others there, you've got Sean Moore. I think he's been playing. Sean's played about half a dozen positions this season. He's done really well since joining from Cliftonville this in the summer. Good player. I think another season in the 21s we'll see him progress. Gideon Cadeau, I know Anton loves him. Good player. Went to Wickham, in and out of the side on loan. I think maybe another loan deal for Gideon next year. To be honest, I wouldn't put him in ahead of Callum, for example, in the first team. Cam Schweier, don't think technically he's got enough. Good player. Could be a good league player, in terms of the lower league, I think, but I don't know whether he's got enough into the Premier League. And then below that, you've got people like Josh Ajala, the under-18s striker, very good player, and hopefully we'll see some more of him. If someone like Callum maybe progressing into the first team, someone like Josh can take the opportunity to move into the 18s. Also in the 18s, you've got people like Josh Briggs. He signed his first pro deal last year. Below that, you've got people like Edges Colin-Beckis, the right back, who I think is a fantastic player as well. So we're in a good I think we're in a good vein of form in terms of players. I mean, there's probably about 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, like 10 players I think potentially could transition into the first team. Again, it depends about who we sell, who we buy, that type of thing. But there's bodies there to be had. So I wouldn't worry too much about things like the academy quota, because I think the likes of Callum, George, Caleb, and Ollie for example, or Freddie rather, those 4, they'd count towards our academy already. So I won't worry too much about that. And I think they all get minutes as well next year as well. I still think some of those 10 maybe will go out on loan, because I think that's benefited Freddie no end. And it's about picking the right loan move for the right person. But let me know what you think. If you're watching the 21s, 18s, have I missed anyone out? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith. Come on, you bloody on.